Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. Hope you're doing well. Nice August day, little breeze in the air is making me think fall is right around the corner, and I can't wait. I know a lot of us feel that way, especially in the horror tube community where we live for Halloween. So we're getting a little closer. So I am just enjoying what's left of summer. Have not been to the beach once yet. I usually go in the fall, but I'm thinking I might do a day trip coming up because I've been kind of yearning to see the ocean. I think I might have mentioned this before. The last time I went to the shore in August, I've got a nice spot on the beach, laid out my blanket and my books, and I'm ready to, like, all I do is like a blanket and water and sunscreen and a book and sunglasses and reading glasses, and I double up, which is really weird, and of course a hat. That's all I need at the shore, but there seems to be this new trend where people bring like camping equipment and set up full tents on the beach. I think it should be illegal myself, but as soon as I got my spot, some dude set up a 6-foot tent in front of me. And I vowed never to go back in the height of the season. But anyway, I digress. I might head down to the shore for a day trip if I leave early. But I do like to bring the pups with me, but not until they can't go on my shore, which is Long Beach Island, until after Labor Day, I believe, or maybe even later. Anyway, I'm babbling, but these are the things I'm thinking about. I'm having a little non-alcoholic Guinness, which is not bad. You know, I used to think Guinness was really high caloric because it's so thick. It's almost like a meal, like a Slim Fast, which is the way I'm using it today, because this is my lunch. But I learned it's actually less caloric than beer, believe it or not. In fact, when I went to Ireland, I had a long trip when I went to Ireland, and I drove all over the country with my mother, which was sort of a spiritual journey in a way of going back to her parents' roots. And it was also a little bit of a spiritual journey for me, dealing with my mother for like 2 weeks alone, and I was doing all the driving in a country where the driving is on the other side of the road, and my mother is like screaming. Yeah. I still have nightmares about it, but it was one of the best trips I ever took, actually. And I don't know if it was just the nervousness of driving, but we actually stayed in some really cool places like castles and all kinds of cool things. We journeyed back to Leenane, which was my grandmother's home, and I got to meet her brother, who was still alive. This was in the late 90s. Who was still alive at the time. And I didn't know a lot about that part of my family. And since then, I've been doing a lot of research about my Irish roots and my ancestors and Ireland in general. So probably talk more about that at some point. Anyway, I drank nothing but Guinness and water while I was in Ireland, and I actually lost like 10 pounds. I was there for like almost 2 weeks just drinking Guinness. So that taught me something about Guinness. Anyway, have a little sip. So we are well into Garbaugust, and I'm still reading Lace. When I finish, I'll post a Patreon vlog. I'm really enjoying it. It's really trashy. It's really great. And I'm loving like it takes place, part of it takes place in Europe, like in Paris, and also in New York, and it's all in the fashion industry, and they have very exciting jobs, the women. Of course, in the background, we have little Lily, who is the girl one of them gave up, because we know one of those bitches was her mother, but we don't know which one. In fact, even though I read this book and watched the movie back in the day, the TV movie, I don't remember. I remember the TV actress who was the Lily's mother, but I don't remember the character she played, if that makes sense. So it's all brand new to me. I'm really enjoying it. It's so much fun. But it's long. So I have a little bit of a trashy haul. I went to a lovely little bookstore in Burlington, New Jersey. Last week, Joe and I took a drive across the bridge from Bristol to Burlington, thus the Burlington-Bristol Bridge. And that was the most we've gotten out in a while. But it's a lovely little kind of sister town to my town. There are a few of those along the Delaware, like New Hope, Lambertville. It tends to work out that way. It's a nice little town, and they have a lovely little bookstore, and it has a lot of pulp fiction. I can imagine my friend Matt Wall loving that store because it has a lot of that kind of old paperback pulp stuff. But I did find a few books that I thought was kind of appropriate for Garbaugust and beyond. And once I finish Lace, I'll read some of these. So this one is definitely more of the pulp line. And I wouldn't really call this garbage because I know this is supposed to be a really good book. And this is Mildred Pierce by James M. Cain. Love the cover. This book, well, of course, I love the movie with Joan Crawford, but I've never read the book. Oh, so this book came out in 1941. So Mildred Pierce, the movie, came out, I don't know, I'll write it here. Joan Crawford, of course, that was her big comeback, and she won the Oscar for her performance in Mildred Pierce. Infamously, I guess she was so freaked out or nervous before the Oscar ceremony that she claimed she was sick with a 104 temperature. I couldn't get out of bed. Of course, in the photographs, it's hilarious because she's in her bed in a beautiful negligee, completely perfect makeup, hair, everything. In fact, Hollywood Babylon, which I'm talking about in a minute, has a photograph of her in bed, cradling her Oscar. Good for Joan. I've always been a big fan of Joan Crawford. And I'm looking forward to reading the book because I'm sure the book is different from the film. And I was kind of happy to see that it was not a long book. So I don't have a lot of time if Lace takes me the whole month. And I'll read it anyway. But I haven't read like a good noir, pulpy book in a while. I did really like the TV movie Mildred Pierce with Kate Winslet. I thought that was excellent. And I hear that one is more like the book. So looking forward to that. And then I got this and I howled with laughter, and I'm just was so thrilled to find this because I didn't know this book existed. And this is Horrors of Lost Atlantis, a novel by Charles Bush. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that he wrote a novel. Here he is on the back as his regular look, and then his, I guess, alter ego, drag look, whatever you want to call it. I had been a big fan of Charles Bush since I saw his play in the 80s in New York, Vampire Lesbians of Sodom. It was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. And the movie that he wrote and stars in, and maybe directed too, I don't remember, Die Mommy Die, is equally hilarious. He is so funny and so brilliant. And speaking of Joan Crawford, he is spoofing Joan Crawford, old Hollywood royalty. He really understands the genre, really has it down. And since I've been so interested in Atlantis and reading all these books about Lost Atlantis, when I saw this, I just almost fell over myself. I'm like, I was meant to find this book. I can't wait to read this. I actually saw him perform probably about 10 years ago. He performed at a cabaret in New York, and Joe and I went to see it. And afterward, he was like just kind of sitting in the bar, still in his complete drag makeup and everything and outfit, and was just, nursing a drink. And I went up and said hi to him, and he was really sweet, and he said something very nice to me. And I'm just a big fan, so I can't wait to read this. This is just so up my alley. And then speaking of more trash, and Charles Bush is definitely part of this world too, I also found the sequel to Kenneth Anger's Hollywood Babylon 2. Poor Elizabeth Taylor. That's just so wrong. I wonder if Joan Crawford's in this one, probably. This one is even raunchier. Oh, there she is. See, I just went right to it. Joan Crawford as a witch. Oh no. All right. This is the last photograph of Joan Crawford. It's it's a bad photograph of her. She's probably, close to 70. The wig is not good. The flash photograph is not flattering. And look, as a woman who's getting older myself, or not quite that old, but I'm getting there. Yeah, you know, you don't like candid photos anymore. Let's just put it that way. It catches you at the wrong angle. You know, it's not good. It's only when you're like really young that you're like, oh, pictures. You know, at my age, it's like, okay, let's check the lighting, check the angle. Here's the picture of her in bed with Oscar. I just absolutely love it. Anyway, when Joan Crawford saw this picture of herself this picture in the newspaper the day after she attended this event, she said, if that's what I look like, I'm never going out again. And she never did. That's how vain she was. But, you know, she was a star. That was her identity. She never wanted to ever be anything but a star. And she said, when I go out, I will be a star. You gotta love it. It's a little sick. I do have like a love-hate relationship with Kenneth Anger. Now I don't have a relationship with him, but you know what I mean. I think he just died recently. He's fascinating, and I would like to read more about his life. I should read. I'm sure there's a couple biographies about him. How he was really involved with the occult, like Lucifer Rising. Bobby Beausoleil, one of the Manson murderers, who's still in jail, was involved with Kenneth Anger. He was part of his projects, and there's just a lot there. A lot of really interesting stuff. Oh, I wanted to mention, too, that if you really want to go do a deep dive into Joan Crawford, that photograph from her last public appearance was it was in the 70s. It was for a surprise birthday party for her friend Rosalind Russell at the Rainbow Room in New York. And you can actually watch a very grainy, very early videotape of the event, of the guests, including Joan Crawford, kind of going in and out of the lobby. There's this really embarrassing moment where Henry Fonda comes out with his much younger wife, and the interviewer thinks that the wife is his daughter, like Jane Fonda, and Henry Fonda just like, you know, snaps at him in the way only a star can. So if you like old movie stars like I do and love all of this stuff, then you might be interested. If not, you just know what a weirdo I am to know about this. And this book that I have to show is not a trashy book by any means. It's a really nice book that somebody was donating, and I don't know, somehow Joe got it. He gave it to me. This is a beautiful coffee table book on Peter Max, the artist. Peter Max was definitely part of my world as well, not just mine. I mean, he was a cultural icon. But growing up in, you know, being a kid in the 60s, late 60s, I remember Peter Max was everywhere in advertising, and look at that. It's cool. I love these books. One day, I will do a video on all my coffee table books. Let me know in the comments below if you would be interested in watching something like that, because I have quite a few, and they're all like art books and some music books. So what else? Oh, I finally finished Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock. Pretty big book. This took me months to read, but I kind of read it off and on and off. It was really good. It was definitely good. I love, like I said, Atlantis. To go from reading this to reading Charles Busch's take on it is really going to be fun. But this gets into a lot of alternative theories about ancient history, some of which I guess are kind of being not debunked, but debated. Oh, he is debating, rather, I should say, not debunking, because debunking means you have proof. But he's offering alternate theories about these ancient archaeological sites, like Egypt, like in South America, parts of Turkey, Easter Island, you know, all over the world. And I love reading about this stuff because I always have been very curious about ancient history. I took a really excellent course, a 2-semester course in undergraduate school. I had a really good teacher on the ancient Near East, learning about ancient Babylon, not Hollywood Babylon, but ancient Babylon, Egypt, and I became hooked on this subject. That shows you what a good teacher can do. And I also read the first of the Mysteries of the Unknown Time Life book series called Mystic Places. You can see the pyramid and the Sphinx on the cover, which was a great companion piece to the Graham Hancock book. And I also rewatched Ancient Apocalypse, the series. Joe and I rewatched it on Netflix. It gets into a lot of the stuff with megalithic sites in England, like Stonehenge. And you look at these structures, and no one really knows definitively what their purpose was. There can be theories, but no one really knows. And what I find very interesting is the similarities between the masonry, let's say on Easter Island, which is so remote, to Turkey or South America. You have similar structures, similar motifs in the carvings. Makes you wonder what that's all about. These earth drawings in Peru. I don't believe that these earth drawings that you can really only observe from the air are designed as runways for aliens. I think that's thinking about it too literally, but it's an interesting theory. It's an interesting concept. One way I like to approach these topics is with an open mind and a sense of curiosity. Graham Hancock is a bit of a controversial figure. He's not an archaeologist. He defines himself as a journalist who has butted heads with traditional archaeologists and they think he is full of it, and he's saying, well, you're not looking at some of the new evidence that's been uncovered, like literally uncovered with some of these sites that prove to be much older than originally thought, just from someone coming as a complete novice with an open mind. I think there's just so much we don't know, of course, Easter Island, Rapa Nui, I think is how it's pronounced, is so remote. That could have been part of a much bigger landmass. Well, why not? It could have been a mountain on another landmass. Now, maybe they've excavated the sea around and, has been proved that that's not true, but why not? There might be something there. It could have been the lost continent of Lemuria. Ireland could have been part of Atlantis or something. We don't really know, but I love reading about it, and I will always be curious about it. So this book gets into a lot of the same stuff that Graham Hancock discusses in his book. Here is the Serpent Mound in Ohio, which is not too far from where I live. So I'm going to try to do a trip there because I really want to see this thing. Oh, and speaking of snakes, snakes are a big part of the motifs of all of these ancient civilizations. And I have my own snake story because last week I got a knock on the door from the Amazon guy. I don't know, I think I bought a book or something. And when I went to pick up the package, and they just leave the package on your porch, had a little surprise visitor. So naturally I was a bit freaked out by this snake, and my neighbors, I was like, oh my God, and my neighbors all came out and we were looking at this thing, and someone said, oh, that's a black rat snake, which didn't make me feel that much better. And I'm like, oh, okay. Does he bite? Is he poisonous? I found out that he wasn't poisonous, but that he could bite. So I was worried about not only my feet, which you could see I had no shoes on at the time, or my dogs. I didn't want my dogs messing with the snake, but I called the animal guy in my town, and by the time he came around, the snake had already disappeared. There was like a hole in the masonry. It didn't look like it went into my house because it's actually part of the wall. And then a couple days ago, I found a very long, like as 5 feet long snakeskin in my yard. So I think he's still around. I don't know if a black snake on your doorstep is a bad omen or a good omen. I'm not sure. I had a dead bird on my doorstep not too long ago, and I was not happy about that. But yeah, I'm open to any kind of these auguries or omens, and just It's all part of the mystery of life as our mystic places. The next book in the series is, I don't have the full series, is called Psychic Powers, but I don't think I have that one. So I'm going to try to find that one on eBay. And then if I can't find it, I'll just move on to the next one, which is the UFO phenomenon, which I've never been a big UFO person, but I'm open to those ideas. Why not? It's cool, and I love the X-Files, you know. I think it's great as a science fiction, of course, and film. But I also think, just like with the mystic places, it's probably, thinking of it literally is probably not the best approach. I think the best approach is to really be, almost to have like a spiritual approach about it, if that makes sense. Because if there's one thing that I learned from reading the Hancock book, reading this book, and just observing this stuff, is that although we may not know everything about our history, as our human history, it's certainly, the evidence is certainly there that we are a spiritual species, and that we are fascinated by the heavens and the stars, and that's part of us. So that's what excites me about these topics, because I think we're still thinking about those things, and we're still spiritual, whether we want to believe it or not. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I've rambled a lot and talked about a lot of different stuff, but hopefully you got something out of this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have read anything I discussed today or have any pertinent comments to make. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.